For an old guy like me, Roger Kahn's book, The Boys of Summer, is living memory. I was a child when the Dodgers left Brooklyn, but I remember that team. It was one of the great teams of all time. But for you, the events Kahn writes about took place more than 40 years before you were born. It's distant history. So the first task is to try to recover some of its vitality. Try to picture baseball played in neighborhood stadiums. The ball players are accessible. Some of them probably live next door. There's only limited TV coverage of games. Imagine radio broadcasts instead. You live in an America before pre-civil rights legislation. Teams travel for road games on trains. This isn't inconvenient because there's no team located west of St. Louis. There's no such thing as an interstate highway, and there are no 24/7 news channels. Roger Kahn's story of the Brooklyn Dodgers of post-World War II America is one of baseball's classic tales. I first read The Boys of Summer when I was a graduate student in English literature in the 1970s. Since then, I've read the book so many times I've lost count. And yet with each new reading, I still wince when I get to the part about Duke Snider and his avocado farm. Edwin Duke Snider played center field for the Dodgers, and he had always dreamed that one day after baseball he'd own a small avocado farm in the California sunshine. A few months after he retired in 1964, Snider bought 40 rolling acres south of Los Angeles, near a town called Fallbrook, with a distant view of Palomar Mountain and its 200-inch celestial telescope. He was living the dream, but the dream didn't work out. 8 years and several bad investments later, Snider had to sell the farm. When Kahn interviewed him for the book, he was living in a house with a pool, a nice yard, and a couple of lemon trees. But whenever the Duke raised his eyes to the horizon, he could see the rows of avocado trees that once were his. Compared to the personal tragedies that befell so many of Snider's teammates, the Duke's loss might seem trivial. But for some reason, the story seemed to me to reveal most about the mysterious turnings of luck and fate. He'd wanted so little, just a 40-acre farm where he could grow avocados, and yet even that was taken away from him. Somehow that seemed to me the unkindest cut of all. The Boys of Summer is another book about baseball, which turns out to be much more than a book about baseball. For once, I'm in complete agreement with the blurb on a book's back cover. It's a book about America, about fathers and sons, prejudice and courage, triumph and disaster, told with warmth, humor, wit, candor, and love.